David, you should stand still on some of our major highways. We'll have a lot of hazardous waste, but they don't have a right to stop me from mowing my lawn.
So, there's a concept in the transgender community known as being or going stealth. And it means exactly what it sounds like: being secretive, being indetectable as far as your transgender status is concerned. And it's kind of a controversial concept in the transgender community, but those transgender people who are able to do it usually do. In fact, I'm doing it right now, or I was doing it before I was introduced. And I have been doing it for about the last 10 years of my life. When I moved to Cleveland in 2006, I was about a year into my transition. I had started taking testosterone October 1st, 2005, and I had just moved to this new big city. I grew up in Youngstown, which is about an hour and a half to the south, so Cleveland was a big city. And I felt excited, and I felt joy, and I was happy for the first time in a long time. I felt comfortable in my own skin. I was ready to live a normal life. And in my mind, at that time, normalcy could only be achieved by living my life as male. And even beyond that, living as if I had been born biologically male. And so I decided not to divulge my transgender status to anyone, ever. And it worked for a little while. Whenever I would interact with people or meet people at work or at the supermarket, they would assume that I was biologically male. And so I let them assume. Now, I was born anatomically female. I'm still anatomically female. And it's something that I've been dealing with my entire life. Even when I was very young, 5 or 6 years old, I was very aware of my internal maleness, and I was very aware of the conflict of being in my body. Now, when you're a little kid, it's not such a big deal, right? Boys line up in the boys' line to go to the bathroom. Girls line up in the girls' line to go to the bathroom. That's about as complicated as it gets. But the older I got, the more of a complication it became. I felt more uncomfortable in my body as my body changed. I didn't want anyone to see me, or talk to me, or touch me, or be close to me. I became more withdrawn, isolated, and depressed. So when I moved to Cleveland in 2006, this is what I was thinking about. So you have to understand that my need for secrecy was not fueled by malintent. My intention was not necessarily to deceive anyone. I was not thinking about that. I was thinking about my history and how I had gotten to the place where I was. I was thinking about being that sad, lonely kid in my bedroom, listening to music, organizing my basketball cards over and over and over and over again because I didn't want to go out. I didn't want to be around anyone. My need for secrecy was fueled by the memory of wanting to end my life 8 times before I turned 21. And so, when people assumed that I was biologically male, I felt validated in my choice. And as I said, it worked. And had I left the city and not continued to make friends and make connections, it would have continued to work. But the thing I had not considered is that when you feel good enough about yourself to start making connections with people, those people want to learn more about you. They want to get closer to you. Your relationship can't stop at being witty and smart and funny. They want to know who you are as a person. And so, when I could not do that because I was hiding something core about myself, that initial elation, that initial joy and contentment started to dissipate. And I turned back into that lonely, isolated, depressed teenager, except by this point, I was 27. So, in order to avoid getting to that really dark place where I could not continue to be alive in my body, I decided that I had to tell someone. So this is 2011. I'm working at Cleveland Public Theater with their summer teen theater education program. It's the end of a rehearsal. I'm sitting at a table with the director of education. Her name is Chris Siebert. And I don't remember what we were talking about. It had nothing to do with gender identity, had nothing to do with anything like that. But I decided that before I got up from that table, I had to tell her the secret that I had about myself. And I was terrified. At that moment, I realized something. I was afraid that by owning who I was, somehow, my maleness, my internal sense of myself, would be delegitimized. I knew Chris. I knew that she was open and loving and caring, but I was so afraid that she would laugh at me, emasculate me, tell me I was crazy, something like that. I knew it, but I had to tell her anyway. So I told her. She didn't laugh. She didn't emasculate. She looked at me and she said, "You are so brave. I'm so proud of you." I had not heard those words from anyone. Looking into this face, knowing that I was different, that was the first time. And that moment with Chris in that room at that table was pivotal. I could not go backwards from there. I knew that this was the first step on a journey that eludes many people who are like me. I was moving on a journey towards self-affirmation, self-acceptance. So I started having these conversations with these people that I had known for 7, 8 years. Telling one person in a private conversation, then telling smaller groups of people in bigger conversations. And then I started finding other people, other transgender people who were having the same conflicts, and we were talking to each other and helping each other. And then I start meeting leaders in the community. And I start being asked to talk about my story and And this was something that began to feed me in this way that I could not have imagined. When I moved here in 2006, I thought it was absolutely impossible. I was finding normalcy in accepting myself. So, why? Why am I here sharing this story with you? Just as much as it was important for me to find validation in my life, in being who I was, in my personal life and my creative life, it is important, I feel, for transgender people to validate themselves in their community publicly. Because I was afforded a luxury that many transgender people never, ever experience and will never experience. I was confident that I looked unquestioningly male, and so I could be invisible. I could blend into a group like that. And most people in my community, in the transgender community, do not have that luxury. So I feel a responsibility to them. I have a responsibility to be visible for the people who do not feel the freedom to be visible. It's one thing to see visibility from transgendered individuals on television, in the movies, on the cover of Vanity Fair. It's another thing to know that there are people like you who are struggling like you, who have struggled like you, who might live right down the street, might be your next door neighbor. That is how community is built. It's how community is strengthened. It's how individuals are strengthened. I'm standing here talking to you to fulfill my responsibility by being visible and vocal in this community. I am being seen so that you can see me, and so that other people can find the strength and the courage to be seen and to see themselves. Thank you.